So we're going to start this video by asking a very simple question. Who is a business really for? Is it there to help customers, look after the employees, serve society, or make money for the owners? That question has shaped business thinking for more than a century. And today we're going to dive into the most famous and most debated answer given by Milton Friedman's shareholder theory. So what did Friedman actually say? Back in the 1970s, this Nobel Prize-winning economist, Milton Friedman, wrote an article in the New York Magazine, and it was called "The Social Responsibility of Business is to Increase Its Profits." His argument was actually quite simple. There's one and only one social responsibility of business: to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profit, as long as it stays within the rules of the game. Those rules matter. Businesses have to follow the law. They have to tell the truth and compete fairly. But beyond that, Friedman suggests a manager's job is simply to create value for shareholders, not play social worker or politician. If executives spend money on social causes, Friedman argues they're effectively imposing a tax on shareholders. They're using other people's money to pursue their own personal moral values. Now, I think it's important to understand why this idea took off when it did in the 1970s. At that period of time, inflation was high, unemployment's rising, government regulation is everywhere, and people have lost faith in bureaucratic solutions. Friedman's message comes along and it's refreshingly clear. Free markets work better than central planning. If every firm focuses on profit within the rules, competition guides self-interest into public good, jobs, innovation, rising living standards. He saw capitalism as a kind of moral system. By serving yourself through honest, you actually serve society. That's what he meant by saying business should stay in its lane. And here's where Friedman's logic deepens and where he becomes often misunderstood. He didn't say helping people is bad. He said business is the wrong tool for the job. Running a business is complex enough. Pricing, competition, logistics, wages, technology. Now imagine expecting a CEO to also solve poverty, inequality, climate change. These are political problems, not managerial ones. Friedman warned that when executives start making social judgments, they stop being accountable. Who elected them? Who decides what social causes are worthy? One manager might fund climate activism, another might support a religious charity. Both are using company money to express personal values, not shareholder interests. His idea is that this kind of decision-making should happen through democratic government, not in corporate boardrooms. Friedman would often give simple illustrations to make the point. For instance, why should a bakery give away free bread to the poor? That's the role of government and voters, not business managers. The baker's responsibility is to run an efficient bakery, make quality bread at a fair price, obey the law, pay taxes, follow social norms, employ people. Then the government, through democratically chosen policies, can use those tax revenues to help the poor. In other words, business creates wealth, government redistributes it. When each stays in its lane, society works best. Underneath all of this are three philosophical pillars. First, property rights and liberty, like we saw with Nozick. Shareholders own the firm and managers act as their agents. Using shareholder money for social goals without consent is like a trustee dipping into the trust fund for a cause they personally like. Second, efficiency and utility. Profit tells us where value is being created. When firms chase profit through open competition, resources flow to where they do the most good for society. It's efficient and, under a utilitarian perspective, increases value. Third, duty and accountability. Managers are accountable to shareholders, not to society in general. Society in general, that's a vague entity that can't vote them out and you can't measure results. So for Friedman, profit seeking within the rules isn't greedy. It's how freedom and accountability are actually maintained. It's also important to recognize that Friedman didn't say you can't pursue some social goals when they increase your profit. So for instance, if you decide to stock free trade coffee because it's going to drive up demand because your customers want it, Friedman says that's perfectly acceptable because your purpose in following that particular social aim of free trade coffee is to actually make profit. So he's looking for an alignment between what adds value, and that is the justification for why you should implement many of these social actions to increase profit, not because it's an ethical good in and of itself. We can still see much of the logic today in Friedman's approach. Think of companies like Amazon. Bezos builds a company based upon efficiency and customer value. The result? Lower prices, innovation, millions of jobs. Or Fortescue Metals in Australia, huge profits for shareholders. But also taxes, royalties, employment in regional towns. Friedman would say that's how business serves society, through economic performance, not through philanthropy disguised as strategy. If Andrew Forrest wants to give his wealth away through the Minderoo Foundation, perfect. That's his choice as a citizen, not a CEO spending company money. Now, like anything to do with ethics, there's some strong critiques. Focusing only on shareholders can lead to short-termism. You might underpay workers or do environmental harm, particularly if you're not doing as Friedman says and following the rules of the game. Things like the 2008 financial crisis, the Enron scandal, the banking disasters we've had, all show that profit at all costs can't replace ethics and judgment and following the rules of the game. Even major investors now question whether shareholder primacy can go too far. And we've seen that, for instance, in a previous video where we were looking at the Business Roundtable statement about serving all stakeholders. More recently, ESG investing and the SDGs has reignited the question, should companies take a stand on social issues or just stick to their knitting? Friedman would say, leave moral choices to voters. Let business focus on making the pie bigger. Then we can argue democratically about how to serve. So what can we take from all this? Friedman gave business a clear purpose. Make profits legally, ethically, and efficiently, and you've done your job. That clarity built the modern corporation, but maybe it also narrowed our imagination for what business might be. And so we're going to have a look at some alternative views in the next couple of videos. Friedman's stakeholder theory and Porter and Kramer's creating shared value that push the pendulum back in the opposite direction, arguing whether profit alone is enough. But before we finish, let's think about Friedman's baker. If every bakery gives away its bread, then there's no bread left to give. And if every bakery runs efficiently, there's plenty of bread and a society that can afford to feed its poor through democratic choice. That's the world Friedman believed in. And whether you agree with him or not, it's a view worth understanding.